welcome to Who Dares Rolls. I am your host, Mike B, and here we are. Delayed. There's been kerfuffles going on. So basically, in a nutshell, my computer blew up. The hard drive was kerfucked. So I had no computer all week, which has driven me slowly out of my gourd. And I haven't had the kit, I haven't had the money to sort it out. Fortunately, Jamie stepped up with a spare SSD, so that sorted it. We're back up. Robbie tried to help and didn't. But yes, the PC's repaired, it's functioning again. I'm filming clearly here to put a video out. So that's what's going on there. That's what's delayed all the shenanigans there. Other than that, all is well. Everyone's fine. I'm good. How is everyone else out there in the world out there in the tubes? Everyone good? Hopefully you've been enjoying yourself. Hope you've been playing some board games and stuff. And speaking of which, I suppose really I should do some of what I've been playing. So let's do that right now. Play games. Wow, we played a bit more Oath. We've been playing Oath on Friday nights. We've played now 3 games of Oath. It is, I covered it in the previous videos, it is kind of adjacent to King's Dilemma. It's this idea of this game, you're playing over a kingdom and you're making actions. There's worker placementy stuff, there's areas on the board go, and as you progress through games of this, you take cards out and put cards in and you save locations. And the kind of the world in which you're playing, kind of legacy-ish, adapts and evolves and changes. The game style changes depending on what cards are going in and out. And it's all based on who wins the game as this Chancellor character and what they do to kind of manipulate what cards they played and what they've done and what's on the board will change game to game. You can have people drop in and out. It doesn't require you to be playing like a campaign. It's just this kind of, every time you open the box and you play it, it is a kind of slightly different version of the world that you played before. And that will continue to indefinitely, to a certain extent, kind of evolve as you go along. I mean, you can reset it as you go. Anyway, so that's it. It's a very gorgeous design. It looks good. It aesthetically, we've covered this before. It's got the designers of Roots, and it's got that Leader Games, and it's got that look and feel, that sort of rootish aesthetic to it. And the gameplay is good. It is, as I said before, it is a relatively simple game as such. You are placing bits on the board and interacting with areas and you play cards out. But all of the cards and all of the different minutiae of how the victory conditions and everything else suddenly kind of paste this level of complexity on top of it. So it's kind of a basic-ish game, but then becomes massively complex once you start trying to work out all the different variables. And having now played 3 games of it, starting to get a feel of how maybe all that works. Because you've got the Chancellor can have people on his side, and then they're trying to usurp him by doing, should I say, by doing stuff, certain victory conditions which change every game. And then there's the exiles or the other players who, if they're not aligned with the Chancellor, which they can be if he offers the option up, they are trying to find these visions. And after a certain amount of them are out of the deck, and you lock one in and you say it will be either to have this many areas on the board or to hold this many relics, certain things you can pick up during the game, or this or that. It will have some relation to something in the game that you have more of it or have the most of it. To beat the upper players, and you can win. And that's kind of how it works. The first couple of games is it got tipped in my favour. In the first game, Robbie sided with me in the dying moments of the game to tip the kingmaker into my position and my kingdom. So then we went forward into Mike's world. And in the second one of Mike's world, Bob, I took I as a citizen came aboard, and again we took over, and I endured for another century or whatever generation of my corrupt empire. And as we went along, I changed the decks, obviously changed. We had these buildings, these areas come down on the board. Not relics, I can't think of the name of the things now, off the top of my head, it's blanked. But yeah, these kind of structures that kind of move around, they stay on the board. So we've seen how the game's adapted. And I like what it's doing. I like the idea of this kind of ever-evolving, sort of subtly changing game. We've played 3 of it now. I will play more of it, and I'm interested to see how it evolves as we go. But I'm not. I I'm not thinking about it constantly. I'm not going away going with that purr of, oh, I want to do this and all this. And it's a lot of moving parts. It is interesting. It gets everyone interacting at the table. The gameplay can change. You can have a fighty type game, and then other games can be much more intrigue and subterfuge and stuff. So there's lots of stuff, and you're kind of watching constantly. The old classic knife fight in an elevator is a very good analogy of it, because you're constantly watching your back, because there's always a way of someone else going to usurp you for the victory condition. So even if you grab it and you're like, you've announced, I'm going to win, there's a pile-on nature to a certain extent of people will probably go and try and take that away again. So it all bounces around quite nicely, and the card play and how that all changes and stuff. It's cool. I like it. I'm not sold on it. I'm interested in the novelty of playing through it, but it's quite expensive, and I don't think, unless you've got a really hardcore group of people that are really going to invest in it, and I think the more of the story you can kind of put into the game, I think there's more mileage out of it from that, whereas kind of the Final Night crowd are a bit abstracty in regards to that. They don't really go to the full thematics of a game, so it kind of loses points for that. But if you had like a big RPG group or big sort of that sort of like a thematic and can extrapolate what's going on the abstracted board into like these wild stories of the world and the kingdom as it advances, then I think you'd get a lot more out of it. But yeah, as I stand, I think it's good. It's solid. I'm enjoying it. Well, I'm sure we'll play some more of it. But it's not one I could heartily recommend unless those points I've just made before. So there's that. Then Sunday last, I was ummed and ahed, and I thought, you know what, I've been trying to go through some of my older games, some stuff I've had laying around for a while. So one what I pulled off the shelf on the Sunday last week was Alchemists, which is for Czech Games Edition. It came out of a spiel a good few years ago now, actually, and I should have probably checked that, but it's getting on, probably 5-6 years maybe, I suspect. The idea of the game is, it was the first one that came out had an app in line with it, and there was outcry and gnashing of teeth. Oh, it's a fucking app. Oh. So yeah, it uses this app. The idea is you are an alchemist and you're mixing potions to present them a local sort of big swinging or contest. Potion brewing, and the game works as you pull ingredients. There's these cards of different various things. They're coloured cards, and they're mushrooms or they're birds or what, I don't know. They're mandrake roots, whatever, and you select two of these things, you scan them using the app on the phone, and it will tell you what those potions mixed in, what those components mix together, what type of potion it makes. And the potions are color coded, so there's green potions, there's red potions, there's blue potions, and then there's plus and minuses versions of those ones. And what you have in front of you is kind of a bit like a battleship's board almost, and as you're scanning this stuff, you're able to scratch off of the sheets in front of you. What you can say is, well, those components clearly don't have these components into them because it created this potion. So they're the most overpowering effects of those two ingredients. And through a process of during the game of scanning various things and testing it out, you try and work out what the components of these different ingredients are and what potions you can make using them. And then on the board in worker placement action, you can do stuff like sell them to adventurers, and there is a subtle and sly sort of good sense of humour to it. It's a complex but not complex game. So yeah, the adventurers, you can sell them and you can potentially offer them exactly what they want, or you can, for lesser money, make a bid on it and go, well, I'm going to give you a potion. You may die, but I'll give you a potion. Then you've got you can go to claim in the scientific world. You can go, well, I claim that the mandrake root has these properties, and you can pop chits down there and you can score victory points based on how accurate your plan is of that. If you've said a mandrake root is a positive blah blah blah, people can debunk you, and you get score points, the more of them as they run during the game. All that sort of stuff. You can test potions on your student, you can test potions on yourself, you can do this, you can do that, you can do the other. Worker placement actions on there. It looks gorgeous. It's really good, actually. Solid design. It's one, I remember when I very first played it many years ago, I definitely wasn't so versed in the board game world, and it was a fucking head scratcher. It really did. I was just like, oh. And I hadn't played it for a while, and so it took a while to get up to speed. And I did actually it was flowing much better this time around. I was actually able to understand what I was doing and go, oh yeah, no, I have got that right. Oh, I am right there. Jamie was having a nightmare. I think he'd had he was having a bad time, having a total night. He just wasn't getting it. And yes, so by the end of the evening, he was completely and absolutely distraught and befuddled and stupefied by the events. But the end result is it is a good. I still like it. I know there was an expansion for it as well, which probably was quite good. But I really like what it's doing. It is a bit involved. It is a bit complex. But actually, that deduction process of finding out the chemical formula and doing that, and it's got that fun kind of element to it, even though it's this heavier game. It's not bad. It still stands up pretty good. It's one that I do want to play again, just to kind of flow through the brain and just understand it. I don't know whether I will better get it with that group because I don't know if Jamie was a fan of it. I'm not sure, but it's not one I would. I'm tempted. It's staying on the shelf. I like it. I like it for what it does. I haven't got really anything else like that, and it is the heavier tier, but it's still a relatively straightforward game, but quite a complexity in it. And you can almost overthink it, is what I'll say. But that was fun. I enjoyed Alchemists, but it's not for everyone. I appreciate that. I presume you can still get it and maybe relatively reasonable. And I would say, to be honest with you, if any of that is interesting to you, of that deduction mechanism and all that. And it's quite a lighter themed game. It's fun, but it's heavier, if that makes sense. I don't know. But it all works quite nicely. It's kind of got a bit of a Terry Pratchett vibe of this incompetent wizards kind of doing crazy wizardy shit. Anyway, there's that. So that's what I played. Let's do some news. News. Here is the news. So out the gate. Well, first things first. Actually, this popped up. Is Terracota Army, which is from Board and Dice. It's a new one. It came out of Spiel. I think this is now coming to retail. I saw this at Expo. They give us a preview of this, and it's this game essentially of you building this Terracota Army and we'll go through it. So we'll look at the board anyway. We'll do an unboxing thing of that in a second, and that'd be nice for you. So I'll do that in a minute. I'll do it now. We're unboxing this. Unboxing of Terracota Army. Yes, lovely jubbly. So yes, this turned up the other day from Board Dice. Lots has happened, as we said at the start of the video, that I haven't had a chance to do it. So I'm kind of unbox this and give you a run through of what's going on with it. Yeah, we'll do that. So yeah, Terracota Army. There we go. Rulebook actually is relatively. It's nice quality paper. Lovely, nice feel to it. Nice and very shiny. Lovely. But yeah, pretty good rulebook. Actually, it takes you through some stuff. It's pretty well laid out. One thing I thought it could have done with, though it's not absolutely essential, is there's no player aids with the game, which is not the end of the world. Once you kind of grasp the iconography and you've played it a few times, it's not so bad. There's a little bit of a reference at the back of the book and a little bit more there, but it's like a player aid in the game. It's just kind of useful. I've assembled this anyway. What you get on the board is this. So this is the board you're playing on. And there is a spinny wheel. Always very nice to have a spinny wheel. The idea of the game is that you are building on this area of the board here army pieces, like the Terracota Army. So these are these spectres, and they will move up and down this run. They all start one place. Every round they move, but you can manipulate them by using the powers of these guys here, or by the troops that you put down, and they will score across here every time. And whatever pieces of miniatures are in those rows, you'll score a point for every single one of them. Well, the person who's got the most in there will score 7 points, and then there is dominance and presence. Essentially, dominance is you have the most pieces of miniatures in there. Presence is you don't. You get the next best thing. So every round, that is being scored. In addition to all of that, down here, and I'll get some of these out, you'll get these minis. So these guys, these horses, there's these, which are kind of cool. Oh, looks kind of quite cool table presents. And these guys, all these different types. I'm going to stick some down there just so you can see them. I'm not going to fill all that up, but you can buy these, and as they're bought, the cost of them goes up. You have to have one of these tokens. Everyone starts with 4 of these tokens, but they're deactivated. As you go through the game, you can flip them to activated or deactivated side, but to buy these, you would have to flip one and pay the coin value and put them down. Now, the horses attach to one of your minis. I will just take one of these out and round up in a minute. If you've got yours with a base attached to it, in the game, everyone has their own set of components. Few little bits and pieces, some meeples, some small and big meeples, and some bases. I am aware that I am schizophrenically going about this, but actually not covering the main rules. But yeah, you would attach them onto there, and then that would mean that that miniature covers all those spaces. Still only counts as one of those, but it covers all those spaces. Anyway, I've got ahead of myself. So main idea of the game is you are filling this board to score points. You can do a variety of things, and on your turn, you essentially have basically an option. You place one of your meeples on this round here. Now, you start the game, depending on the player count. So with a 4-player game, you start with 3 of these little tiny meeples. I think they're called artisans, and then when you upgrade them to the bigger meeples, they're craftsmen, I think. Kind of irrelevant. There's the mini ones and the big ones. So you place them on there, and then when you place them, you get all the contents of where that wheel is lined up. Most of this is fairly self-explanatory once you've done it a few times. So there's clay you'll get, and you get the clay. You need the wet clay, the orange-coloured clay, to be able to build these statues, to put them on the board. And every time you build one, depending on, so this will cost you 2 clay, this costs you 4 clay to do it. And you put it there, build the miniature, put them down, you score points related to what they are. And in the box, and I've now taken and sorted it out, is you get this, which has got all the minis in it. All the different types. There's 4 different types you can buy. There's spearmen, archers, pikemen, and swordsmen. Each of them, as we can see here, has a differing ability when you put them down. So, for instance, the swordsman, when you put him down and then flip the token related to him, the sword token, you will be allowed to move these one way backwards and forwards. The pikeman, him, when you put him down, if you activate him, you can move any only one of your pieces. The extents of the lines, depending as long as it's not blocked, they can move anywhere along there, and your scores some victory points. The archer is a different one. When you place him, depending where you place him, the space between him and where the next miniature, whatever one it is how many points you score when you flip the token to do that. And finally, the spearmen, these guys, is when you flip their tokens, you get some coins and some victory points. So that's what you're doing throughout the game. And every time you place one, your score points, actually we start at this end here, your score points for it, so 8 points for the first one going down, 7, and as these are taken off of here, then they're worth less and less and less points. So that's in a nutshell, kind of what you're doing. So during the game, you can put your little ones down. There is an option here on the wheel, which is this guy here will allow you to upgrade a small meeple into a big meeple. Now, why would you do that? Why do you care? Well, number one, if there is a big meeple or craftsman or artisan, whatever the hell ever they're called, on a spot, then you cannot place a little one there anymore. It is locked off. So there is an advantage to upgrading your meeples to the bigger ones because it gives you more options as the game proceeds. If there is a little one down there, then you can place a big one next to it. That doesn't block it off, but these big dudes do. So that's really one of the core advantages. Around the wheel, in the middle wheel, is these icons here, which relate to these guys. When you select those options, you have in your hand a bunch of tokens. All the same, sort of looking, but they've got different coin values on them. They start from 1 through to 6. You can spend whatever one you want to pull out. So if you've got a couple of coins, you pay 2 and you pop it on there, and that means that moment you get this ability, and then subsequent times when you trigger that, you don't have to do this anymore. You can just do the ability. Plus, end of round stuff. These guys retain coins. They give you coins. These guys retain your clay. They don't turn dry, which is a thing that happens in end of a round. Any clay in your hand you've collected, if it's wet, it will go grey. It dries out. It dries out, so you have to wet it again using one of these symbols to make it wet again. And they look like this. So the wet clay, dry clay. Every time you put a miniature down, a dry clay goes on the area related to where it is, and you can collect these using this guy's ability. This guy allows you basically to spend money to, depending on the round value, to put miniatures onto this board. This guy's very powerful, pretty cool. He allows you to essentially to redo the action on that wheel a second time. So if that lines up nicely with some coins maybe, or building of something or something else, then you can churn out some more coins or do stuff. It's like a double up action. This guy covered moves these inspectors around. This guy just gives you clay. This guy gives you the stacks of this with they fill up, and this guy flips all of your tokens over, all these tokens here, over from the U side to the positive side, and these are quite useful to have because they tie into you activating your troops here, they tie into you getting these things, so on and so forth. that, in a nutshell, is it. Other than down here, there is some randomised end round scoring, so they might relate to areas of the board you have to have miniatures in. They might relate to clay. They might relate to a specific miniature. They might relate to all manner of other things. And that is pretty much how the game plays. You essentially take an action here on the wheel, place your miniature, whatever, score your points. Next person has their go, and that's pretty much how it works. These all score different things. So the horses I've covered, they do basically just give you more coverage of that guy, which if you line it up with here means that essentially you're scoring wherever that hits against that thing. Just counts as one of that miniature but spreads it. This guy here needs to be completely surrounded. The person who have, well, you surround him, the person who has the most presence, the dominance around him will score 8 points. Anyone else involved in that fight then would get less points. This guy basically attaches to one of yours and essentially is quite useful for breaking ties. He just means that if in the event of your maybe presence or something else, this guy essentially counts for 2 at that point in time, if that's is attached to him. I mean, it is useful for breaking ties in areas. And then this guy, at the end of every round of scoring, he will score down the 4 paths from him and any mini in that route. So there, for instance, you'd score 1 point for that guy, and whoever had this one will score a point by that. That's it. I know I've rushed through that pretty quickly, but that in a nutshell is how it works. And it's quite initially deceiving because you think, oh, well, this is okay, but as you get into it, the whole of this and manipulating this and pointing things down, flipping it is quite heavy duty, quite a lot to think about. These play up quite nicely to it, having these abilities. And then there's a turn order track, which is here. And you can actually, during the game, go here. There'll be some tokens on here. If you go here, take that off, it means you're guaranteed to be first player next round. And it plays over 5 rounds. At the end of the 5th round, then we score 1 more time here. And then the end game scoring relates to who is the most dominance of the board in that. It then works on clumps of miniatures. So every one of these sets are the same. There's 2 or more together, and it doesn't matter if it's yours or someone else's. They kind of all clump together if they're all in one lump. And whoever's got most of them will score the bigger points of it, and you'll score points for that as well. And then these guys score, and so on and so forth. So it's all about the placement on this board and how to go about it. Oh, I did forget to say actually at the start of the round. Before you take your action on this wheel, you can spend 2 coins and rotate one of these 2 reels one way or the other. So these will go around that way, these will go that way. You can pay 2 and basically rotate it once, which can be handy. What you'll find as you play the game, as people are putting stuff down, these areas are getting blocked off, which is why I said the bigger meeples really useful, because you can then opens up more options as the game proceeds, and you can certainly find yourself getting cock blocked during the game on this wheel, and it can get real tight, it can get tricky, and what you want to do is try and optimize the most out of this wheel action as you can when you place it down. You really want to try and get everything out, but it's trying to time that right, because if you've got like dried clay, then you obviously want to wet it, and then that's an action, and then if you want to pop them out, you need another thing. So there's a hell of a lot of combinations if we look at this here. There's obviously 3 points. These all relate to these, being able to pop these out. These just flip the tokens. If you never want to take the action of the wheel when it comes to you, so if you don't want to take that, then you can just take a clay or a coin, and you can take a coin or a clay there. You'll always have to take the bottom action, or you just get nothing for that. That is it. Initially we played it, so I played it a couple of times now. First game of it, I did all right with it. I quite liked what it was doing. I started to get a feel for how it was motoring. We played a game the other night of it, and I did appallingly. Tony did really good. And I'm really swinging on this. My first play, my initial play, I really came down for. I really thought it was quite good. I quite liked the tactics in it. It's a lot of thinking revolved this reel. It is where this is and what you can do. You kind of trying to plot ahead, but there's only so much you can plot ahead. These masters here seem to be really powerful if you can get some of them early doors. Definitely the bigger meeples early doors seem to really a no-brainer. But all the action is related to this, so it's kind of always doing this. I think after a couple of plays now, that it's all about almost one round is kind of gathering everything, so then the next round to kind of use it. But the problem you've got is you can only plan so far ahead, because depending where this wheel is, and every round, at the end of every round, these will automatically always move one round, so it was always on the move. But you may be lined up and going, well, I know I'm going to do this, this and this. But then if someone moves the wheel and then someone else moves the wheel, by the time it comes to you, you could be screwed in that I can't get the combinations and stuff, and especially if these areas are blocked off here, and actually the action you want is on here, but it's all blocked off, so you can't use it. So you've always got to go, well, what can I do? So I'm on the fence at the moment because I aesthetically think it's kind of cool. I like what it's doing. It's all pretty neat. The minis are all really good. Let me get some more out just so you can see them. So there's Pikeman and Swordsman. I'll be honest, out of the box with these guys, I had quite a few of these. You can see some of the Bindi spear situation. There we go. It's a Bindi spear. A lot of these guys, when they came out, were basically like bananas. I had to kind of do the old hot water trick to bend them up. They've come out all right. I've not bothered trying to sort the spears out, to be honest with you. So, but aesthetically, it's kind of cool looking. I kind of like this thing as you're building this. It kind of thematically works really well. And I like this rondel, this wheel thing. However, I am left after a few plays, and there is only a couple of plays at the moment, thinking there's an awful lot of random on this because you can't ever really plot for this. I mean, if you ever played Zolkin, which is a brain burn at the best, which has 3 interconnected cogs that you place workers on and they kind of move, at least there is something you can plan towards on this. Whereas this, if you're first player, and being first player definitely has some advantages, a lot of advantages, especially if you want to do certain stuff, you want to line yourself up really early doors. You can find yourself in a situation where you cannot do any of the actions you want to do, and you're kind of placing your meeple down because you have to place it somewhere, and you're getting stuff maybe that you can't use. You can't optimize that move, and it is very much a game about optimization. You really want to get absolutely the maximum out of every place. You are only placing 3 of these on a 4-player game every round, so you're only getting 3 actions to maximize out what you're doing. I think the lower player counts you'll get more actions to do, but the board will be filling, as I say, it's blocking areas off. So you're not only looking at what you want to do and if people are moving stuff, but obviously what areas of the board are blanked off, what's locked off from you, and that can get a little bit frustrating because, oh shit, so it's all about that. So I left after the play we had the other day. I'd say I enjoyed it. I really do like what it's doing, and I like the aesthetics of it all, although I'm left in this quandary of, is it a random fest? Because you have no agency and control of this, really. I mean, you can move it yourself, but if people are moving this thing round, then there's no point of kind of plotting what you're going to do on your turn, because you don't know where these wheels are going to be. So especially if you're a late game, you're the 4th player, then really by the time it comes to you, you're kind of got to wait it out and go, well, what are my options? You might get lucky. You may well get lucky with stuff. How often, a lot of time you're left going, oh shit, I can't get all the stuff I want. The coins are really important. Trying to keep that run of coins coming as well, because obviously being able to rotate the wheel is quite essential, really helpful to be able to do that. As I said, it feels like you almost need to spend 1 round collecting stuff, then the next round spending it. 1 round collecting stuff, the next one spending it. It's brisk. Once you know what you're doing, it does tear through a fair rate of knots, actually. It doesn't hang around. As long as people don't suffer from massive AP on this or this, actually, the rounds can spin round pretty quick. There's certainly a lot of depth for strategy there. There's a lot going on. I think, as I say, aesthetically, it looks very cool. I like it. I like what it's doing. I like the mechanisms. I like all of the stuff it's doing. I am just currently fence-sitting on regards to it may be a deep think and maybe much more tactical than I'm kind of thinking, or it is a random fest. And that's the only thing I'm siding down on this. But this wheel is, you can find yourself getting absolutely blocked constantly of, if you're late in the game, of trying to do stuff and not being able to, and then just not maximizing your actions. And with so few actions, it does hurt at a certain point when you know, shit, I've not done that, I've missed that option, and there is that level of frustration to it. So there you go. That is Terracota Army from Board and Dice. There is a brief overview, kind of unboxing of it. Other news, so Hasbro were releasing Age of Extinction, HeroScape Age of Extinction, and they were putting it on their own Pulse, I think it was the crowdfunding thing. They needed to get, I think it was 8,000 subscribers for it, this $250 box. HeroScape is, I think it's about 12 years old now. It was a mass market game, and it came with absolutely metric ton of plastic in it, and you had these plastic terrain you could build, and it was a war game, but it was all like 3D miniatures and huge big plastic thing. Back in the day when we could produce plastic cheaply, and it was who cares about the ozone layer, it was mass market. You buy it in Toys R Us everywhere, and I remember us having it on discount in toys, and kind of not really clocking what it was. And I could have picked up a shit ton of it at a very cheap price, and I would have had tons of it, and I didn't. And maybe a little regret there. Anyway, they were trying to relaunch it. There was a big relaunch trailer, whoa, and all this sort of stuff. But they pulled the plug on it. It hasn't reached funding, unsurprisingly. So they're shelving it indefinitely. No Hero Escape will be coming out. The Age of Annihilation has been annihilated. I don't know how you come down on that. The news is generally today going to kind of side towards, fuck me, that's expensive. What were you thinking? So there's that going on. I'm neither here nor there. I was not in the market for it. It was way out of my price range. I've got plenty of games, and yeah, okay, that happened. Elden Ring is what we're going to come to. So Elden Ring is coming from Steamforged Games. Obviously, Elden Ring's huge at the moment. It's adjacent to the Dark Souls universe. I think George R. R. Martin was involved in some of the scripting on it. It's a big open world, sandboxy version of like the Dark Souls style of game, that grindy sort of thing. I do love a Dark Souls game. I've not played Elden Ring yet, but I'm tempted to. It's one that's definitely on my list. Steamforged are bringing out the board game version to Kickstarter, I think in November, the end of November. I think. Yes, November the 22nd. There you go. Now, they have prior history because they've done a bunch of stuff, that, especially video game licenses, they did Resident Evil, and back in the midst of time, they did Dark Souls. And I love Dark Souls, and I was initially on board with the crowdfunding. And as I sat with that crowdfunding on that one, and it kind of grew and grew, I was left rather with the same feeling if you ever saw the series Lost. I remember watching the TV series Lost and getting to about season 2 of it, or the cusp of season 3, and going, hold on a minute, they're making all of this up as they go along. This is bollocks, and walking back. I had the same experience with the Dark Souls Kickstarter campaign, where I just looked and was like, they're never going to fucking deliver all this shit. I know, and I red flags. And I walked away, and sure enough, that was a debacle of a Kickstarter campaign. It took forever, years, I think, for all of the eventual stuff to be launched and released to people. The game itself was kind of broken. It was broken, and I think it was subsequently kind of patched, and rules revisions were made, basically off of the actual fan base playing it and fixing it on behalf of Steamforged, who eventually, I think, published these fixed and amended rules that kind of almost made it playable like a Dark Souls game sometime later. I personally don't have a massive, huge high opinion of Steamforged. They've produced a lot of this stuff. There's Dark Souls. They've done stuff with Horizon Zero Dawn. I think it was similar territory. I hear the Resident Evil games are okay. I just, not with a barge pole, is my opinion of them, because I just think they're a bit shady operators, is my feeling. It may be just my feeling of them, but just see them, how they kind of have done stuff and what they've done. I don't know. I just don't know. They don't really fill me with confidence. So Elden Ring, just to get you in the mood and get the juices flowing, the base box of this is going to cost you $179, $180, just for the base box. They reckon it's going to be over $400 for the initial Kickstarter, but they've already announced and mentioned somewhere that actually what the Kickstarter and what these 3 or 4 boxes in there are only containing, I think, the first couple of areas of the game. So more will be coming. So you're looking at stuff that could be over $1,000's worth of stuff. That is vastly too rich for my liking. It would be vastly too rich for my liking anyway. Number one, I've not really played Elden Ring, the video game yet, so I'm not that all in. But secondly, that with Steamforged, just I'm like, not a fucking chance. Not with a 10-meter cattle rod. I would no. If you've got the money to spare, fine, good for you. It's gonna fund, I'm sure, but I would maybe just, it feels a scrape over the line, or I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe everyone else has got a high opinion of them, or maybe they've not. So many jaded people out there. But that's why I come down to it. I'm no, so I can't recommend that. And I might watch from afar as a little bit of a car crash, but I'm certainly not dabbling my toes anywhere near that. Core Media not have announced a Stranger Things game coming via designer Rob Davio, going straight to retail next year. and they put a teaser trailer out, which has been running just now. It's based on the first 2 seasons of Stranger Things. You have a flip board, so you play one side of the board, flip over the other. I saw a little video that came out of a similar sort of time, which was a kind of semi-interview, playthrough type thing with Davio on it. And I do have a lot of time and respect for Davio. I really think that he's done some amazing stuff, and he's a big RPG fan. He likes story and he likes all this sort of stuff. So yeah, he's a designer I have a lot of respect for and enjoy a lot of his stuff. Looking at it, putting aside my displeasure or just general burnout of Core Mini, interesting that it is going straight to retail, not with a mass amount of miniatures, but some in there. But it does look kind of a pandemic-y vibe. Obviously, he's done the Pandemic Legacy games with Matt Leacock, so it does feel like some of that has rubbed off onto him in this design, and it's kind of basically a cooperative game of you trying to stop bad shit happening, is the gist of it. So I don't know. I mean, I know Owen Dawes loves a bit of Stranger Things. It might be something that I could potentially get involved in. We had the Buffy game, and that was similar, and she didn't. As a push, she doesn't do the poor games. But yeah, there you go. I don't know. Stranger Things, I've kind of lost interest as it's gone along, if I'm honest with you. I haven't even watched the last season because I started watching it, and it was just very much. Well, the early ones were kind of evoking a nostalgia of King and 80s horror and all that. The latter one is just kind of felt like it was fully kind of just, it wasn't even hiding or winking. It's just like, we're just ripping all this shit off now. It's not even like a nostalgia level now. It's just, we're ripping it off, and this is this is that, this is this. So I don't know. I need to maybe go back to it and watch it, because I did enjoy Stranger Things. I like what it was doing. I just kind of had a bit of burnout on it. Or maybe it's just me. But there you go. If that's of interest to you, there's that coming in. That probably means that we'll get more board games with more of the stuff for the latest seasons in it. That's it for news. I've got nothing else at the minute. Other than that, what have I been up to? Not a lot, really. Trying to fix a computer, to be honest with you. That's pretty much been my overriding passion of late. I finished watching For All Mankind, which is on Apple, because I had a free Apple subscription. It's all right. I quite liked it. It's 3 seasons available at the moment. I don't know if there's a 4th due. It kind of wraps up towards the end of the 3rd one, though. It leaves enough hanging that you could carry on with it. Essentially, in a nutshell, it goes over decade to decade to decade. Starts in the 60s into the 70s, 60s, 70s. Shows them a space race in an alternative world if the Russians had got to the moon first, and it's kind of how this space race evokes from Moon and down onto Mars and da-da-da-da-da. It's by Ronald D. Moore. A showrunner is behind it, the guy behind the Battlestar reboot some years back. Good cast, and some genuinely quite cool moments. And I've always had a thing with space. Have you ever seen the movie Gravity, which I think is really fantastic? Or I'm trying to think the other one, but well, even Apollo 13, any of that sort of stuff. Those ideas of the ingenuity of how NASA functions, which is great, and it does a lot of that, but also the like the right stuff and all that. Just the idea of these guys that kind of seat in their pants stuff, and also the terror of the potential lost in space type scenario. There is moments in this where there's space disasters and stuff happen, and some of it's really well done. It's like Gravity vibe to it of like, what if you spun wildly out into space? You're fucked, and that kind of sense of like, shit, that's not cool. So the stuff of that, I really dug all of that. That's all been pretty cool, and it's I can recommend it if they're a fan of the space race, that alternative galaxy type view thing, and some of that stuff. It's good. It has its moments, but it's pretty good. I like that. And then Andor I've been watching, which is absolutely fucking astounding, brilliant. I think there's only one more to go of that, and I'm going to miss that. It's going to be an Andor shaped hole in my viewing schedule next week. Because it's very good, really good. I'm looking forward to season 2 of that already. If you've not watched it, go and watch it. It's fucking good. Great cast. Doing all of them, just doing cracking job, and it's just brilliant. Slow burn, just character motivation building. Oh, brilliant stuff. That's it, I think. Other than that, what have I got planned? Well, everything's kind of got thrown for a cocked hat with what happened. So I don't know where I'm at with stuff. But I will get back on a regular thing at some point. At least the PC is working now. So there you go. That is where we're at for the minute. Stay safe out there. Enjoy yourself. Play board games. Do stuff. It's the festive season's on the way. It's nearly December already. What the fuck is going on there? Where's the year gone? So yeah, well, that's happening as well. I'm losing my voice apparently. I feel like I'm in Jazz FM. I don't know. Anyway, cool. Stay safe out there. Do stuff and play games and stuff.